So in the last video, we looked at this argument for convergent realism, but we didn't defend its key premise, which is the second premise, the claim that no sentence in T can conflict with a sentence in T star. We also looked at why this argument is so important, because the loss of convergent realism is a serious loss. It leads us into some kind of anti-realism on which no scientific theory is better than another. Now that may be a bit of an exaggeration, there may be other options, but at the very least, there's some concern about losing convergent realism. In this segment, we're going to consider that key premise. The second premise, which, just to back up here, is that no sentence in T can conflict with a sentence in T star. That is, we'll see why Kuhn advances that premise. So here's Kuhn's argument. He bases that premise on the following claim, that for any pair of scientific theories, T and T star, no sentence in T has the same meaning as a sentence in T star, and that implies that no sentence in T can conflict with a sentence in T star. If this claim is true, then the key premise in the argument against convergent realism follows, so the argument is sound. So why does Kuhn think that this claim is true? Well, here's the basic structure of the argument. I mentioned we're going to deviate from the way in the handout that we're deviating from the way Kuhn presents some central pieces of the argument so that it fits better with what you've already learned about Frege. But the basic idea is really in the spirit of Kuhn. So where n and n star are two natural kind terms, they may be the same word in language, like n may be water and n star may be water. That is, n may be the word water and n star may be the word water. But where they're two natural kind terms, and T star are two theories, and n appears in theory T and n star appears in theory T star, the sense of n, when I say sense here, I'm thinking of a Fregean sense or something similar, like a mental particular in your head that's comprised of a description or something like that. The sense of n is determined by the entirety of theory T. That is, the sense of any natural kind term is determined by the theory in which it appears. And the sense of n star is determined by the entirety of T star. That is, again, the sense of any natural kind term is determined entirely by the theory in which it appears. Now, Kuhn advances what's called semantic holism about meaning for natural kind terms in scientific theories. Semantic holism just says that the meaning of one term depends on the meaning of all your other terms. So this follows straight away for Kuhn. But the real consideration that makes Kuhn adopt holism is very much in the spirit of Fregean descriptivism. So we're going to focus on how descriptivism underpins this, the reasoning that supports premise one. So let's look at that reasoning. So Kuhn argues that one is true, and as I just said, we're going to sort of focus on a Fregean way of talking rather than Kuhn's own way of talking. So here's the basic idea. Suppose the word water refers to whatever and only whatever satisfies the sense of water, where the sense is a description that fixes the reference of water. What is the reference-fixing description for the word water? Well, it's something like this. Water is whatever and only whatever meets all of the following conditions. It's clear when untainted by foreign substances. It nourishes organic life. It erodes loose soil. It freezes at 0 degrees Celsius, boils at 100 degrees Celsius, and is liquid in between. So let's say that collectively is the description that basically makes a definition of water. It's the sense of water. We're going to call that D. A few things I want you to notice. First, that description, D, is a set of propositions. D includes various other terms, or when I say propositions, you can take that to be sentences expressing propositions. D includes various other terms, including other natural kind terms. If you want to talk in just propositional terms, you could say D includes various other concepts, including other natural kind concepts. But I'm going to run roughshod over the term concept distinction for the time being. For example, D includes the words organic life, soil, and liquid. It also includes terms for other properties, natural properties, like clear and untainted and loose. And it includes terms for natural processes, such as erodes, freezes, and boils. Well, if you're going to give the meaning of the word water, and you're going to define water by the description we gave, it's clear when untainted and so on, then you're going to have to define any of the terms that appear in that description. So you're going to have to define untainted and foreign substance and nourish and organic life and so on and so forth. Well, defining those terms will require giving the sense for those terms. And giving the sense for those terms will require invoking still other terms. So, for example, you'll need to give the sense for the word freeze, which will require invoking the word solid. So you're going to have to give the sense for the word solid. And that might require giving the sense for further terms, and so on and so forth. So the point here is identifying the reference fixing description for water is going to require identifying the meaning for all sorts of terms. You're going to have to sort of do it all at once. That is, you're going to have to, in order to define water, you're going to have to define untainted, foreign substance, organic life, loose soil, degrees, Celsius, boils, and so on and so forth, as well as various other terms that are invoked when you're defining those, such as the word solid. Well, that's going to be an enormous set of propositions. Such an enormous set of propositions, you might think, it will basically constitute an entire theory of the nature of water. So the sense of the word water is an enormous set of propositions, perhaps thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands. And if you change any one of those propositions, you're changing the sense of the word water. And since the sense is part of the meaning of the word water, if you change any one of those propositions, you've changed the meaning of the word water. So if the sense for water includes, for example, nourishes organic life, and then you come along and you say, I don't think water does that, it follows that you're expressing a different sense with the word water. So you mean something different by the word water than I do. So when I say water nourishes life and you say it doesn't, we're not disagreeing, we're talking past one another. Just like the person who uses is to mean has a feature isn't really disagreeing with the person who uses is to mean is identical with. When you say water doesn't nourish life and I say it does, we're not really disagreeing because nourishing life or not is part of the meaning. Well, as I just said, you might even say that the entire theory in which water appears, that is, any theory in which water appears, plays a role in determining its meaning, if you have this kind of view. And this is the kind of view that Fregean descriptivism, you might think, inevitably leads to, and it has the kind of meaning holism consequence that Kuhn invokes. Okay, that number 4 should not have appeared there, but I'm just going to continue on. So suppose it's true that the sense of n is determined by the entirety of the theory T, and the sense of n star is determined by the entirety of theory T star. Well, if that's right, then either theory T and theory T star are just the same theory, or n and n star must have different meanings. So again, if the sense of each natural kind term is determined by the theory in which it appears, then for any pair of natural kind terms, either they appear in the same exact theory, or they have different meanings. That's what number 2 is saying. So it follows that either T and T star are just the same theory, or n and n star have different meanings. Now, we can just rewrite 3 to say this. If T and T star are distinct, which is to say they're not identical, then n and n star must have different meanings. Well, now take this premise. If n and n star have different meanings, then T and T star aren't competing theories about the same things, because T includes n and T star includes n star, but n and n star have different meanings. See, their natural kind terms aren't referring to the same things, so the theories can't be about the same things. Well, here's another claim that appears to be trivial. If T and T star aren't competing theories about the same things, then neither can be closer to the truth than the other. That is, there's sort of no metric on which they appear. Saying that one is closer to the truth than the other is like saying that the claim that Minneapolis is 300 miles away is closer to the truth than the claim that Minneapolis has 2.5 million people. They're just different metrics. If T is distinct from T star, it follows, then neither can be closer to the truth than the other. Well, of course, if T is identical with T star, then neither can be closer to the truth than the other, because they're just the same, so one can't have a property the other doesn't. So now we have if T is distinct from T star, then neither can be closer to the truth than the other, And if they're identical, then neither can be closer to the truth than the other. Well, clearly, either they're identical or they're not. So we get the conclusion that neither T nor T star can be closer to the truth than the other. And that's exactly the conclusion that Kuhn wants. That's the conclusion that was premise number 2 in the argument for convergent realism. Or to put it more precisely, number 9 here implies what was premise number 2 in the argument for convergent realism. So let's just look back really quickly. So for any scientific theories T and T star, we had this argument for against convergent realism. Sorry, I think I was saying for, but I meant against convergent realism. The argument went like this. If T is closer to the truth than T star is, then T and T star conflict. No sentence in T can conflict with a sentence in T star. That's what we just looked at, the argument for that claim. So it follows that T can't be closer to the truth than T star, but of course convergent realism implies that 3 is false, so convergent realism is false. So that's Kuhn's argument, and everything hinges on this second premise, this claim that no sentence in T can conflict with a sentence in T star, and Kuhn has just given us a at least interesting argument for the truth of this claim, and thus for the falsity of convergent realism. Next time we'll continue by looking at Putnam's reasoning. That is, we'll look at why Putnam thinks that this argument for against convergent realism isn't good, because he thinks that premise 2 is in fact false.